Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Maybe you could just kick off with a brief introduction to this wonderful film, Girls, Girls, Girls. What can audiences expect if they watch it?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, it's a lot of people call it a feel-good film, so they can certainly expect that. It's actually very uplifting and a lot of fun. To me, it's a very political film also, like it's my big feminist manifesto, if you will. So that's like a very important thing to me, but it's not a ranting one, so it's not wagging its finger. It's a very easy watch and very, very optimistic and positive. So yeah, I guess it's kind of balancing both of those sides. And I don't love the word coming of age story, because I always feel like it suggests that you somehow at some point in life come of age, and after that you are of age. And I don't believe in that myself, but certainly it's sort of called that. And of course, the story has a lot of those elements, so people can expect elements of coming of age.
And obviously, this is your second feature. So, what was the inspiration behind it, or the original idea, and why did you decide this was going to be the story you wanted to tell for your second feature?
Well, the writers Ilona Ahti and Daniela Hakulinen contacted me already before I had made my first feature, and that was a long time ago. It was in 2014 that they got in touch with me. And at the time, I was struggling with my first feature because I wrote the script to that. It's an adaptation, and it was huge. It was like, I was struggling with the size and scope of that film. And I had decided that I wanted to do something way smaller and more intimate, plot-wise, of course, big in emotional impact and psychology. And so when they sent me the treatment for this story, I immediately thought it was perfect for that. And of course, obviously, it had a promise of a great script. They didn't have a script yet, but you could already tell that they were doing something special with the theme of teenage experience. And I also really wanted to focus on female-driven stories. And so obviously 3 girls in the leads was a great opportunity for that. And I really quickly got interested and excited about dealing with the representation of girls on screen, because, the 3 of us were all girls or young women at the time, maybe not so young anymore, but basically we all shared the experience of having grown up with films where we didn't find girl characters or female characters that we could so well identify with. So that became a really big, huge motivation, basically, for taking on this one.
And of course, I think a lot of the authenticity is there in the writing, but it was also going to be crucial that you cast those 3 characters really well. And they seem to bring so much authenticity to the characters, but also their interactions. It sort of feels, that they're already lived in, those friendships and the chemistry that they have. So how did you cast the 3 girls, and how did you kind of make that come alive on set? Was there a long rehearsal period, or so on and so forth?
There was. My casting time period was also long. I took it really slowly on purpose because I wanted to make absolutely sure that I found the perfect combo. You're never, of course, casting just individuals, but in this instance, you could tell that the second you changed one of the 3, everything changed. So they were all interconnected. And so I wanted to really have many rounds of casting and find the perfect fit, which I think I did. But then the rehearsal period was equally important, if not more so, because they didn't know each other from before. But I certainly wanted that feel that you're referring to, that it feels like they were real friends. And I think that in the rehearsal period, which was around 3 months, I believe, of course, not every day, on and off, but basically we got to know each other and become friends and really build that trust and sort of full knowledge of where the other person is and how they feel about certain things. We shared everything, like all of our thoughts of life and teenage life and emotional life, romance, love, parents, everything. And then we rehearsed simply the friendship too. How are teenage girls together? I feel like they have this beautiful, specific physicality when not romantically physical, but but braiding each other's hairs or leaning on top of each other in a very specific way. But you only do that with real friends. So we needed to get there in order for that to be present. And I asked them constantly, like, bring notes. Don't just like be the nice girl who comes in and respects the text and respects me as a twice their age director, but just sort of like make it your own, always challenge me and always challenge any line, any detail, any bigger thing, and sort of like really own your character, which they did. So that was beautiful. And they also had a lot of input in their the looks that their characters have. So it was a very collaborative process. And I think the collaboration is key in why it feels authentic, because they really, really own their characters.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about like the way it's been shot, because it definitely, when you're saying there at the beginning about its kind of optimistic feeling and an intimate feeling that it has, I mean, that's also comes across in, the warm tones and how the camera seems to sort of capture these very, subtle, nuanced moments. So, maybe you can talk a bit about that from like a practical perspective, how you captured that on film.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the DP Jarmo Kiuru and I, this was our third project together. And what we really like to do is we're quite methodical. We love to have like a very specific method for each project. And for this one, after a series of meetings and sort of, living with the story, we figured we wanted to build on a pretty documentary style take, because we really wanted there to be truth and realism. But we didn't want to be naturalistic. So, we still wanted a lot of sort of cinematic qualities. So we developed this sort of 3-tier method, where level one is being very intimate with the character, being very close to them, kind of letting the character's emotions lead the camera. We never, ever told them to hit a mark or, like do something for the camera. It's always very sort of, how should I say, camera is there for the actor is not there for the camera. So we are always observing their life and their reality. Then tier 2 was kind of this social tier. We're kind of following in a very documentary style the girls. I wanted to keep the camera in movement constantly because I really wanted it to feel like a teenage life. And I think that teenage are always in movement, except when it stops, then it's kind of like a special effect. I kept repeating this mantra that movement is norm and stopping is a special effect. And then the third tier was kind of like this more cinematic layer where we sometimes step back and look at it from not necessarily God's eye, but maybe the filmmaker's point of view, because I didn't want an adult look at teenagers' life, and I certainly wanted to avoid nostalgia. I wanted it to be really relevant for young audiences. But then there's these occasional moments where you kind of like look at the bigger picture, a little bit more iconic view maybe of that time in life that adds to the 2 other layers.
And, in the filming of it, were there any scenes or moments that were particularly difficult to shoot, or any challenges, and particularly maybe doing some of the more intimate scenes when you are working with such young actresses, how you kind of, as you were mentioning before, perhaps create that feeling of trust and safety on set?
Yeah, well, actually the intimate scenes I didn't find difficult because we had such a good process for rehearsing them. I had intimacy coordinator Pia Rickman, who actually lives in London and teaches at a university there, the name of which I forget, but she works as an intimacy coordinator, and she had a specific process for how to rehearse those scenes. And I really enjoyed making the choreography for the scenes together with her and the actors, because it was really collaborative and therefore also really easy. All awkwardness was kind of taken away from it when you just get into the room and talk about it out loud. And of course, that was preceded by having created the trust, the mutual trust already. It wasn't like we started with intimacy scenes. We already knew each other pretty well, and my actors knew that they can trust me. And, I will never ask something that I've said beforehand that I wouldn't, and, that kind of thing. And I actually already in my casting notice said publicly that there is no nudity in the film, because I'm not against nudity in film at all. I've had it in my previous film, and I don't love the idea of making a female body a taboo So I think that it should be okay to see that in film, but it of course has a lot to do with how you're looking at it. And I think that in this particular film, the right decision was not to show any intimate parts of the body, because that way the actors could really focus all of their energy on the performance. You know, to me, the intimacy coordinator has less to do with safety, because I'm not a scary director. To me, it's like more about having facilitating the best possible performance for the actors. And if they think of anything else except the actors' needs and wants in those scenes, then of course it's already a little bit of the performance missed. And I also don't find it particularly interesting to see where someone's finger or tongue is going. You know, it's a lot more to do with how the characters are emotionally experiencing it. And that's of course not different from any dramatic scene. So to me, the intimacy scenes were really quite easy. What I hate though is car scenes. Absolutely hate car scenes, because it's so difficult to make them look like anything but crap, you know. Basically just do a close-up, and it's so boring and terrible. But luckily the actors are so charismatic that even the car scenes, I think, have a lot of emotional content in them.
Definitely. Well, I'm almost out of time, but you know, what do you think some of the themes are that emerge from it? And something that is quite striking, because perhaps when we think of coming of age, particularly if there's going to be, you know, LGBTQ plus themes in there, there's always quite a lot of threats, or maybe sometimes, you know, even if nothing kind of dramatic really happens, is that feeling of threat, and that's not present in this film. And I thought that in itself feels very refreshing. So yeah, what do you think some of the themes are, and particularly in that respect, you know, what you wanted to achieve?
Thank you for saying that. I think that to me was one of the main things we discovered in the writing process already, that we are so conditioned to wait for that bad thing to happen, be it to queer characters or female characters, that even we had a scene where these girls get into danger. And we were appalled by that sort of like internalized misogyny that I think it comes from. And we decided we don't want to enforce anything like that. So we removed any threats at all. You know, like they do, these three girls do whatever they want to do without it even occurring to them that they should think of anything else, which is basically completely the opposite message that a lot of films send. And so that was really important, just to offer an experience for anybody, really, not just women, for anybody in the audience to sort of focus on identity and exploration of sexuality without thinking of it through the other people's point of view, what they think, just how it is to you. Obviously, female sexuality and looking for pleasure is a big theme here. You know, women are still called sluts when they are sexually active, even if we believe very strongly that it's obviously a very natural human animal need in all of us. And we're not saying that it should always be, you know, seen as something that's easy or perfect or anything like that. Absolutely not. You know, like Drunka's story very well points out, it's her, for the lack of a better word, problem, or her question is not answered. And that to me is a very positive ending in her story. There's a big theme of incompleteness. Like I said in the beginning, I don't really believe in coming of age and then being somehow that person for the rest of your life. I believe in constant involvement. And I think that it's a great message that the film is saying, that as incomplete, you're perfect as you are. You know, you don't need to figure it out. And that we try to do in pretty concrete ways as well in the film, you know, with the acne and the braces and like that kind of thing. It's not like life is so perfect and beautiful as so many films suggest.
And, you know, do you think that we're seeing progress in being able to have more different perspectives on the female experience on screen, and, you know, having female-driven stories, whether that's, you know, behind the camera or who's writing? Or do you think we've still got a way to go to kind of have more of that sense of equality, or more that, you know, just you can see the full spectrum of experience on screen?
Well, that's a really good question, because I feel I was just talking to this wonderful director writer Maria Magenti in New York. She did a Q&A with me, and she did a film, The Incredible Adventures of Two Girls in Love, in 1995, which basically is the mid-90s version of this story in a way. It's a queer story of similar age girls, and I thought that film was radical in the same sense that my film, I think, is, I call it understatedly radical for the reasons we've discussed. And I was saying to her, like, I find it so aggravating that I feel like every decade there have always been like female filmmakers and more diversity and female driven stories and radical stories. And it's always like lifting off. And then somehow every decade seems to always have like this newfound, like, oh, now we're coming to the female driven films and female directors and female stories and whose stories we're telling kind of conversation. And now post Me Too, it's finally happening. So something is cut in between. There's always a good start and then it dies. Maybe it's a backlash, like the patriarchy stops us from proceeding. And as we know, many female directors have a very hard time getting their second or third feature made. And so the tradition kind of cuts there maybe too. So I don't know. I really hope that now that I think there's great momentum right now. If you look at any, at least Western country, there's so many great female-driven films, both female character-driven and female filmmaker-driven films, that I really, really hope that we're not in 10 years writing stories like, oh, now the women are coming to the big screen, that it actually will continue, because I feel that there is great momentum right now.
And just finally, what does it mean to you to have already had such great reception, from Sundance, and obviously now it's getting released in the UK? And can you quickly tell us what you might work on next for your third feature?
Well, it feels really, really great to have this recognition for the film. I never ever thought that it would be a film that traveled. So this is all kind of like extra. And we were just chosen the Finnish Oscar contender also. So it feels, like we've already achieved everything, like I don't think we'll actually be nominated, but it's been a really, really lovely response. So I just feel very grateful for that. And the next film I'm working on is actually a period piece, but also unfortunately quite relevant. It takes place in 120 years in the past, and it's about a woman who doesn't really fit the frame that she's given in that society, and how to deal with that when your identity doesn't really fit the norms of the times. And unfortunately familiar topic, but hopefully a fresh take on that. Kind of like how should I say? Well, I shouldn't say any references, but yeah, it's period but modern, I would say.
Oh, fantastic! Well, can't wait to see that one as well. But of course, for everyone to get stuck into Girls, Girls, Girls when it's out in cinemas very soon. Thanks so much for your time. It was lovely to chat to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.